Let us pray. Gracious God, may the words of my mouth, the meditations of our hearts, our minds, even our spirits, may they be acceptable in your sight. O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Well, change. That is the uncomfortable truth of our lives. Things change. And perhaps even more alarming than that is that our relationship to change is our very relationship with God. Ever since creation, or maybe the second day of creation, God has urged us, called us, threatened us even, to change ourselves, and to change our world, our communities, to be more faithful, to be more obedient to God's vision of a peaceable, diverse kingdom. Through the prophets and the plagues, with the flood and then the law, God urged us to change. And to make Eden and then Judea, Egypt, and every place sense more just, more faithful, more peaceful. The Bible, in fact, is the very story of God's call to us to change. And it is the story of our resistance. And of course we resist. After all, change is uncomfortable. It's hard. And the truth is, sometimes deep down, we fear that things can't change. That we can't change. But that is not true. For change, for us, for the world, it is possible. And I happen to have video proof, which is why we have a TV in front and there's a computer there. This would be a good time to get that ready. So as you can see, for 20 minutes you've been staring at this picture. And what is it? Does everybody know? It's some seaweed. It's underwater. It's some seaweed. But it's not only that. I contend that there's something else right there, very plain in the picture, but perhaps hidden. Another animal is right there besides that plant. And it's not that little fish, if you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. That's not what I'm talking about. So are you ready to see what it is?
Yes.
Well, thank you. There we go. You can hit play. It's waving in the currents. It is, of course, an octopus. Fabulous. Cephalopods. You all know cephalopods, of course. That's octopus. That's cuttlefish. And it's squid. They have the ability to change themselves, to change their color, to match their surroundings in order to hide from danger. And so I'm going to show another picture, this time of a cuttlefish. That's a cuttlefish, if you didn't know. It's a cross between squid and an octopus. And what the cuttlefish can do is not only change color, but watch this. It can change the very texture of its skin. Oh, I love that sound. And here is another octopus. It's slowly moving across the seabed floor. It's pretending to be a rock. Just like some of these other rocks you can see around it. It's pretending to be a rock until a better disguise comes along. And there it is on the right-hand side. It's another form. I don't know. If Betsy Bosser were here, she'd tell me it's some kind of marine plant. And look at that. the octopus becomes the plant. It's pretty amazing, huh? It is truly amazing. The ability that these cephalopods have to change themselves to match their surroundings. It seems humanly impossible. But is that true? For we too mimic our surroundings. If we are surrounded by a hostile situation, we become hostile. If someone hurts us, we mimic them. And we hurt them back. Or we desire to do so. If someone threatens us, demeans us, gossips about us, we often do the same thing right back to them. We mimic our surroundings. But Jesus did the exact opposite. And he implores us to do the opposite as well. Paul, paraphrasing Jesus, says in our scripture, which Barbara read this morning, bless those who persecute you. Do not curse them. Bless them. That is the opposite. Love your enemies. Jesus and Paul say, if they're hungry, feed them. If they're thirsty, give them something to drink. Do not repay evil for evil, but overcome evil with good. Paul asks us to infuse our love, God's love, into an atmosphere of hate. He says, don't become like that hateful storm that surrounds you. Instead, infuse your peace into the storm. Just as Jesus did that day on the sea. For that is what changes things in a healing and positive way. Jesus and Paul, in a certain way, implore us to become non-conforming cuttlefish. Because we do have the ability to mimic our surroundings just like the cuttlefish. We have the ability to hide in order to save ourselves, to be safe, to survive. But Paul and Jesus say, do not conform to the ways of this world, not to its fear, not to its hate, not to its injustice, but rather be transformed by the renewing of our minds, that we may know the heart and the will of God, all that is good, all that is perfect. And then, once we are transformed, act that transformation out, that the world may be changed. Act with courage and faith, infuse into the world that peace, so that the world begins to mimic the love within our heart, the love of God, everything which is good and perfect. Here is a timeline of a storm. In May 1963, in Birmingham, Alabama, Black Americans marched peacefully to win voting rights. There's a picture of that on the Peace Pledge on the insert in your bulletin. That man, that boy that is being attacked by that dog is 17. A junior in high school. What courage he has. What faith. Bull Connor, the city's, Birmingham's public safety officer, authorized the use of attack dogs, fire hoses against the marchers. And many, like this boy, were injured. Only 2 months later, in Washington, in August, there was the March on Washington, in which Martin Luther King Jr. gave his famous speech, I Have a Dream. It was 2 months after that picture of the dog and the boy. Only a month later, a month and a half, in September, a bomb was planted in the 16th Street Baptist Church in Birmingham. It was detonated during church school, killing 4 little girls. These 5 months from May to September was a storm of violent proportion. Literally, it raged in Birmingham, Alabama. When those 4 little girls were killed, can you imagine their parents, like those disciples on the boat, coming up to Martin Luther King and saying, "Do you not care that we are perishing? Stop." Many in the movement demanded that they lay down their plowshares and pick up their swords, that they return violence for violence. But into that rising storm, Martin Luther King stood up and he breathed peace. He held the parents' hands of those children that died, feeling in their hands the cool of the tears that they had brushed away. And he said to them, and he said to all who screamed and demanded violence for violence, we must meet the forces of hate with the power of love. For hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. It was a tough pill for those parents to swallow. It was then, and it is now. But that is the medicine that brings a healing change to one's soul and ultimately to our world. A year and a half after that bombing, voting rights legislation which had been marched for was indeed signed into law. God calls us, always has, and calls us now to change. First, by changing ourselves into people of love and peace and courage. Then, to infuse those qualities developed in our own hearts into this world, into our communities, our families, our places of work, to create healing change. The question for us is, how will we answer that call? Will we, like the cuttlefish, hide to save ourselves? Or will we be non-conforming cuttlefish in the model of Jesus and Martin Luther King and those pictures on that insert in your bulletin, who were courageous examples of peace and love that did change and still can change this world? That will be the story of your life. May it be a story of peace and justice.